My friend, I don't believe you're here by accident. Something greater than you pulled you into this moment, because a prayer has been searching for your name. There are prayers that you pray, and then there are prayers that pray for you. Divine words waiting to collide with your destiny. When you align your spirit with divine law, heaven responds not in silence, but in manifestation. So before this message ends, I dare you to look again, because what you've been believing for might already be in your account. Get ready. Your spirit is about to make a withdrawal from the unseen realm. There is a law in the spirit that commands wealth to find you. Not because of luck, not because of effort alone, but because of divine alignment. You see, prosperity is not pursued. It is attracted. When your spirit, your thoughts, and your words synchronize with the order of heaven, provision begins to move in your direction. It doesn't chase noise, it responds to frequency. The frequency of faith, the vibration of gratitude, the sound of alignment. There are people working day and night, struggling, striving, yet never arriving. Why? Because they're trying to earn what can only be received through understanding. True wealth is not material first. It is metaphysical. It begins as an energy, a consciousness, a knowing. When you understand the divine law that governs abundance, you stop begging and start becoming. You stop worrying about money and start walking in mastery. The Creator never designed you to run after things. He designed things to respond to you. Every resource on this planet was programmed to obey divine order. When you align with that order, peace becomes your atmosphere, favor becomes your currency, and opportunities start knocking without an invitation. That's not superstition. That's divine legislation. It's how the kingdom operates. But let me ask you, what are you aligned with today? Because you cannot attract what you constantly resist. You cannot receive what you secretly fear. You cannot command what you do not understand. The law that commands wealth is not activated by greed. It's activated by gratitude. Gratitude tells the universe, I already have it. And when you speak like that, live like that, believe like that, the heavens take notice. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to walk into blessings they didn't even pray for? It's not favoritism, it's faith alignment. They have tapped into a rhythm, a law, a current that flows from heaven into the earth. And that current doesn't care about your status, your past, or your background. It only responds to order. The right frequency attracts the right harvest. Your words are frequencies. Your thoughts are seeds. Your faith is the soil. When these three come together in divine order, something supernatural begins to happen. Your spirit starts to emit a sound that wealth recognizes. Yes, wealth has a sound. Provision has an address. And when your spirit vibrates at the same level as your purpose, every resource assigned to your destiny begins to locate you. You won't have to chase it, manipulate it, or beg for it. It will find you, because the law cannot be broken. It can only be ignored or activated. And today, that law is being awakened within you. So, before you look for more, align yourself with what already belongs to you. Because when the spirit of order meets the law of abundance, there's only one result: manifestation. And what happens when manifestation becomes your new normal? Well, that's where the next revelation begins. When heaven decides to make a deposit into your life, it doesn't use a bank. It uses your belief. Your spirit becomes the account, your faith becomes the signature, and your obedience becomes the authorization. Every prayer that rises in alignment with divine law opens a vault, not in the clouds, but in your consciousness. That is where wealth begins to move. Not first in your hands, but in your heart. Most people pray from desperation, but heaven responds to revelation. The moment your prayer shifts from asking to knowing, everything changes. You stop sounding like a beggar and start speaking like a co-creator. You stop hoping for miracles and start manifesting them. Because when heaven deposits into your account, it doesn't give you money. It gives you wisdom, ideas, instructions, and favor that produce what money cannot buy. But here's the mystery. Many people never check their spiritual account. They keep praying, but they never pause to perceive. Heaven doesn't always answer with sound. Sometimes it answers with silence. Silence that carries divine instruction. A whisper that says, move there, or call that person, or start that thing. And when you obey that whisper, you make the withdrawal. What if the thing you've been waiting for is already credited to your spirit? What if heaven has already released it, but you haven't yet recognized it? That's why the word says, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man. Because heaven deposits where eyes cannot see. It places provision in potential. It hides miracles inside of moments that seem ordinary. So before you check your physical account, check your spiritual one. Look for the ideas that keep returning to your mind. Look for the doors that keep opening without effort. Look for the people sent into your life in divine timing. Those are not coincidences. They are confirmations, signs that heaven has made a transaction on your behalf. When heaven deposits, the enemy's job is distraction. Because if he can keep you looking at what you lack, you'll never notice what you've been given. That's why gratitude is powerful. Gratitude activates awareness. It opens your eyes to what's already yours. And when you recognize it, you multiply it. Recognition is the bridge between prayer and manifestation. So the next time you pray, don't just talk, listen. Don't just request, receive, because every divine prayer carries a divine deposit. You're not praying to get something from God. You're aligning to release what's already been stored in you. And once that realization settles in your spirit, once you truly grasp that heaven has already transferred what you've been asking for, you'll begin to see it. You'll begin to walk in it. You'll begin to live as if the answer already exists, because it does. But here's the question. Once you've received the deposit, do you know how to access it? That's where the next revelation unfolds. Your spirit has a bank account, but most people never make a deposit. They keep praying for withdrawals when the balance is empty. You cannot withdraw peace if you've been depositing worry. You cannot pull out prosperity if you've been sowing doubt. The spiritual account functions on the law of correspondence. What you plant in faith, you harvest in manifestation. Every word you speak, every thought you think, every emotion you nurture becomes a transaction in that account. Now hear this. Your bank balance in the spirit determines your manifestation in the natural. That's why some people speak abundance and walk into it, while others declare lack and see it confirmed. The universe doesn't discriminate. It only translates. It takes your belief and turns it into evidence. So the question is not, where is my blessing? The question is, what have I been depositing? You see, every act of faith adds credit to your divine account. Every moment you choose gratitude over fear, obedience over hesitation, you are increasing your spiritual wealth. And when the time is right, heaven authorizes a release. Opportunities start to appear. Ideas are illuminated. Doors open where there were only walls. It feels sudden, but it's not sudden. It's the divine account maturing. Imagine if you treated your spiritual account like your financial one. Checking it daily, monitoring what you allow in and out, protecting it from overdraft. Because in the spirit, every complaint is a withdrawal. Every negative confession drains your credit. Every word of faith, however small, is a deposit. And when those deposits accumulate, heaven begins to respond to your consistency. Have you ever noticed that favor follows certain people? It's not luck, it's investment. They've been depositing honor, sowing service, walking in forgiveness, speaking life even when surrounded by darkness. And when the storms come, They don't drown, they float, because their spirit is full. Their account is in overflow. That's the level you were designed to live in. Not survival, but overflow. The overflow that touches others. The abundance that speaks louder than words. Because when your spiritual balance rises, your environment begins to reflect it. Your mind clears. Your relationships heal. Even your finances begin to align. Because everything external mirrors what's internal. So, before you panic about what's not in your pocket, check what's in your spirit. Are you full of peace or fear, faith or frustration, love or bitterness? Because whatever is stored within you will eventually manifest around you. You cannot hide the balance of your soul. It shows in your results. And when your spirit's account is full, you begin to withdraw effortlessly. You speak and things shift. You believe and things align. You move and heaven moves with you. But now that you understand you have a spiritual bank account, the question becomes, what kind of currency are you trading in? Because that's where the next revelation begins. When you pray, the universe takes attendance. Every time you open your mouth in faith, heaven leans in to listen. The unseen world pauses to record your words, your tone, your intention. Because prayer isn't just communication, it's registration. You are declaring your presence in the divine order. You are saying, I am here, I am aligned, I am ready. And in that moment, everything in creation listens to you. The problem is, most people pray without presence. Their lips move, but their spirit is absent. Their words rise, but their heart is disconnected. And the universe only responds to authentic sound. It is not the length of the prayer that moves heaven, but the level of consciousness behind it. The power is not in the volume, it's in the vibration. The tone of faith carries farther than the shout of fear. When you speak from your spirit, the energy around you begins to shift. The atmosphere rearranges itself to accommodate your expectation. That's why the right prayer at the right frequency can move what effort could not. Because prayer is not begging, it's birthing. It's the alignment of the visible and the invisible. It's the moment when your internal belief meets external manifestation. So I ask you, when you pray, do you truly believe heaven is listening? Do you know that creation is responding? Every mountain hears you. Every storm recognizes your voice. Because your prayer is not just sound, it is law. It is a decree. It's the legal documentation that authorizes heaven to intervene on earth. There are angels assigned to your words. They wait for your command. But when you speak with doubt, they stand still. When you speak with faith, they move swiftly. That's why the scripture says, you shall decree a thing and it shall be established. Established where? In the realm of manifestation. Your prayer is the signature that activates divine execution. But here's where many miss it. They speak words of faith, but their inner dialogue cancels the transaction. You can't declare abundance and think poverty. You can't speak healing and nurture fear. Heaven takes attendance at your prayer, yes, but it also takes inventory of your belief. The words you speak must match the conviction you carry. That's where manifestation is born. When you realize that your prayer is a command center, not a complaint desk, everything changes. You stop praying for things to happen to you and start declaring things to happen through you. You become a vessel of divine movement, a walking agreement between heaven and earth. So the next time you pray, remember this. The universe is listening, heaven is recording, and your words are setting laws into motion. You are never speaking into emptiness, you are speaking into eternity. And once you understand that heaven doesn't just hear your voice, but responds to your vibration, you'll want to know how to align that vibration with divine provision. And that's where the next revelation begins. This is the prayer that aligns you with divine provision. Not the kind of prayer filled with fear, desperation, or doubt, but the prayer that positions your spirit in perfect agreement with heaven's supply. Because provision is not something you chase, it's something you connect to. When your spirit is aligned, resources recognize you. When your heart is centered, blessings locate you. You don't need to run after what's already assigned to your name. You only need to match its frequency. You see, divine provision is not an act of pity from heaven, it's a principle of order. It flows wherever purpose is present. And that's why alignment is everything. Many are praying for miracles while walking out of position. They want harvest without planting. They want results without rhythm. But heaven doesn't move out of emotion. It moves through alignment. When you come into divine order, you step into divine flow. Think about it, when a river flows, it doesn't struggle to reach its destination. It moves naturally, effortlessly, because it's connected to its source. That's what true prayer does. It reconnects you to the source. It clears the clutter in your spirit so that heaven's current can move freely through you. That's why you feel peace after a real prayer, because your spirit has been recalibrated. But alignment is not just about words, it's about posture. You can't pray for abundance while holding on to bitterness. You can't speak of blessing while carrying unforgiveness. Every misaligned emotion blocks divine flow. Heaven responds to purity of heart. The prayer that aligns you with provision begins with surrender. Surrender of pride, fear, control. Because when you let go, you make room. And when you make room, heaven fills it. Ask yourself, what areas of my life are out of alignment? Am I asking God to bless what He never told me to build? Am I praying for increase in a place where my obedience has been absent? These are hard questions, but they are necessary. Because provision follows purpose. When your life lines up with your assignment, lack becomes impossible. You were never meant to chase provision. Provision was meant to chase you. That's why alignment matters. It's not about convincing heaven to bless you. It's about becoming the kind of vessel heaven can trust to release blessing through. The prayer that aligns you doesn't change God's mind. It changes your position. It brings you back to the center of His will, where all things flow in divine timing. And once you reach that point of alignment, you stop worrying about when and start trusting in who. You rest. You expect. You move with certainty that what is yours cannot be delayed, cannot be denied, cannot be destroyed. Because divine provision always meets divine alignment. But once you've aligned your spirit, something greater begins to stir, a hidden current, an invisible force that starts working in your favor. And that's where the next revelation unfolds. There is a hidden current that governs the movement of prosperity. An invisible flow that carries divine provision to those who know how to align with it. You cannot see it with your eyes, but you can sense it in your spirit. It's that quiet assurance that tells you something is shifting. It's that inner peace that whispers, stay still, your harvest is on its way. That current is not random. It's a spiritual law, the unseen system of divine supply. Most people try to create success through force, through effort, through endless striving. But the kingdom doesn't operate by strain. It operates by flow. When you move with divine timing, things begin to unfold naturally. What others fight for begins to find you. What others chase begins to choose you. Because prosperity is not just money, it's movement. It's the current of divine energy that flows from heaven into every obedient life. You can't plug into that current through worry. Worry is resistance. Fear is friction. Doubt is disconnection. The current of prosperity moves where there is faith, gratitude, and peace. That's why you can't afford to live in emotional chaos. It interrupts your signal. Heaven's current doesn't flow through noise. It flows through stillness. The quieter your soul becomes, the clearer you can hear divine direction. Have you noticed that when you are truly in alignment, things begin to happen faster, smoother, easier. That's not coincidence. That's connection. You've stepped into the flow. And in that flow, there's no need to beg, no need to compete, no need to compare. Because everything meant for you is drawn to you by the current of divine order. You don't fight for the blessing, you attract it. You don't chase after favor, you magnetize it. Think of it this way: every blessing has a pathway, every destiny has a current, and that current is activated by obedience. Every instruction from heaven is a directional cue that moves you closer to divine flow. When you ignore instruction, you step out of the current. When you obey, you re-enter the stream. That's why delayed obedience often feels like struggle. You're walking upstream against the flow of grace. So stop trying to make things happen your way. Let the current carry you. Let the Spirit lead you. When you surrender to divine flow, even your setbacks start working for you. What looked like a detour becomes direction. What looked like a delay becomes development. Because in the current of divine prosperity, everything serves a purpose. And when you finally learn to ride that current, when you stop resisting and start flowing, you begin to move in rhythm with heaven itself. You become unstoppable, unshakable, untouchable. Because what's moving you is greater than what's opposing you. But there's something deeper still. Because this current doesn't just bring resources, it brings revelation. It awakens a hidden voice, the voice that speaks directly to your finances. And that's where the next revelation begins. There is a voice that speaks to your finances, but most people never hear it. It's not the voice of the market, not the voice of your job, not even the voice of opportunity. It's the hidden voice of divine instruction. That whisper from the Spirit that says, sow here, wait there, move now, give that. You see, wealth doesn't begin with work. It begins with a word. And that word always comes from the inside. The challenge is we've trained ourselves to listen to everything but the inner voice. We listen to fear, to logic, to the noise of opinions. We consult statistics instead of the Spirit. But every major shift in destiny begins when you tune your ear to the divine frequency. Because that voice doesn't just guide you, it guards you. It tells you when to stop before disaster strikes. It directs you to opportunities others overlook. It positions you in places of provision before need even arises. Have you ever wondered why some people always seem to be in the right place at the right time? It's not coincidence, it's connection. They've learned to recognize the tone of divine direction. The hidden voice is subtle, but consistent. It doesn't shout, it leads. It doesn't argue, it confirms. And when you learn to trust it, your finances begin to follow divine rhythm, not human reasoning. Sometimes that voice will tell you to do something that doesn't make sense. To give when you're low. To release when you'd rather hold. To plant when it looks like famine. But understand this, divine instruction often looks illogical because it operates on higher logic. Heaven's economy doesn't follow earthly systems. When God speaks, it's not about subtraction, it's about multiplication. Every act of obedience becomes a seed that activates increase. You see, wealth doesn't just flow to those who work hard, it flows to those who hear well. Hard work produces effort, but obedience produces overflow. When you obey the hidden voice, doors begin to open that effort could never touch. The right people appear, the right ideas come, the right resources align, because that voice is the GPS of your prosperity. It knows where your harvest is waiting. But here's the danger. When you ignore that voice long enough, your spirit becomes numb. You stop discerning. You start chasing noise. And when you chase noise, you lose clarity. That's why silence is sacred. In silence, you hear direction. In stillness, you recognize opportunity. So if you want your finances to rise, stop shouting at heaven and start listening to the whisper. because the hidden voice doesn't compete with chaos. It speaks in peace. And that peace is proof that you've heard correctly. Once you learn to hear that voice and follow its rhythm, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your words start to carry that same creative power. Because the next revelation is not just about hearing the voice. It's about learning how your own voice creates your world. Faith is heaven's currency. It is the only language the invisible realm understands, the only transaction that moves divine resources into the physical world. You can't buy it with effort. You can't earn it through religion, and you can't fake it through emotion. Faith is the evidence that you believe the unseen is more real than what you see. It is the invisible signature that authorizes heaven's intervention on earth. Every miracle that has ever manifested was paid for by faith, not money, not status, faith. Because in the kingdom, faith is not a feeling, it's a function. It's the currency that heaven recognizes, the exchange rate between belief and manifestation. When you release faith, heaven releases substance. When you declare with conviction, creation responds with confirmation. That's why it says, according to your faith, be it unto you. Not according to your wish, not according to your tears, but according to your belief. Faith is not passive. It's active, alive, creative. It doesn't wait for evidence. It produces evidence. When you speak by faith, your words become the receipt of what already exists in the unseen. You're not trying to convince God to do something new. You're simply accessing what's already been approved. That's why faith feels different. It carries authority. It doesn't ask. It announces. It doesn't wonder. It knows. But here's the mystery. Many people pray in hope, not in faith. Hope looks forward to something. Faith pulls it into now. Hope says, one day. Faith says, today. Hope wishes for change. Faith commands it. And when you begin to pray in that dimension, your words begin to move resources. Because heaven doesn't respond to need. It responds to faith. Do you realize that every financial blessing, every opportunity, every open door has already been completed in the mind of God? Nothing is pending in heaven. It's only waiting for the currency of faith to release it. That's why worry is so expensive. It drains your spiritual account. Doubt devalues your currency. But when you believe, truly believe, you raise your spiritual credit limit. Suddenly, you start to see doors where walls used to be. You start to sense favor in places others overlook. Faith changes not just what you receive, but how you perceive. So stop asking for more things and start building more faith. Because faith is not what you have, it's what you use. You don't need greater blessings, you need greater belief. Every time you activate faith, a transaction occurs. Something shifts in the unseen and begins to move toward you in the natural. And once you understand that faith is not just the key, but the currency, you begin to pray differently, think differently, speak differently. Because you finally realize your mouth is the vault, your faith is the signature, and your word is the withdrawal. But what happens when your faith becomes so strong that even your words begin to reprogram your atmosphere? That's where the next revelation begins. There is a prayer that reprograms your atmosphere for abundance. Not just the air around you, but the energy, the vibration, the spiritual climate that determines what enters and what exits your life. Every environment carries a frequency, and your words, your emotions, your faith, they set that frequency. When your spirit begins to align with abundance, your atmosphere starts to obey. Things that once resisted you begin to respond. Doors that were shut start to sense your presence and unlock. But here's the secret. Your atmosphere doesn't change until you change. You can't pray for abundance while thinking in poverty. You can't attract favor while confessing fear. The atmosphere around you mirrors the atmosphere within you. If your heart is full of doubt, your surroundings will reflect confusion. If your spirit radiates gratitude, your environment will vibrate with opportunity. You are not a victim of atmosphere, you are the architect of it. Every word you release carries energy. Words are spiritual codes, frequencies that either build or break the environment around you. That's why complaining repels blessings, but praise multiplies them. When you speak in faith, your atmosphere begins to rise to the level of your confession. You are literally programming the unseen to produce what you proclaim. The invisible hears you before the visible sees you. Have you noticed that when you walk into some rooms, the air feels heavy, but in others it feels alive? That's not about lighting or music, it's about spiritual climate. And your personal atmosphere works the same way. When your prayer life is strong, your presence carries peace. When your faith is active, your steps carry authority. People can sense when your spirit is aligned because your energy speaks before your mouth does. So how do you reprogram your atmosphere? You do it through consistent prayer, positive declaration, and the discipline of gratitude. Gratitude shifts frequency faster than anything else. When you stop focusing on what's missing and start praising for what's present, the vibration of your environment begins to rise. Suddenly, you start drawing in opportunities that match that higher frequency. You stop chasing success, and success starts chasing you. Prayer is not just a conversation with heaven, it's a calibration of your environment. It cleanses the spiritual air, resets your focus, and tunes your spirit back to divine rhythm. That's why when you finish praying in faith, you feel lighter, because your atmosphere has been cleared of doubt and infused with divine expectancy. So, from this moment on, guard your atmosphere. Protect your peace like treasure, because whatever lives around, you will eventually live within you. And once your spirit, your words, and your surroundings agree, abundance has no choice but to appear. But after your atmosphere shifts and begins to overflow with divine energy, something even deeper begins to happen. You start to remember why abundance was looking for you in the first place. And that's where the next revelation begins. You were meant to prosper, not to survive, not to struggle, not to merely get by, but to thrive. Prosperity is not a privilege, it's your divine design. The Creator never formed you for scarcity. He formed you for stewardship, for multiplication, for dominion. Everything about you was built to produce increase. Your mind, your gifts, your words, your spirit, all carry the potential to create. The tragedy is not that people lack provision, but that they've forgotten their position. You are not sent to the earth to chase after blessings. You were sent to manifest them. Prosperity is not something you pray for, it's something you align with. It's a law written in your very DNA. The moment you believe in your divine worth, you activate your divine wealth. Because the greatest currency in the kingdom is not gold or silver, it's identity. When you know who you are, lack loses its authority over you. So many people are living beneath their inheritance because they've allowed fear to define their future. But hear me, fear was never meant to lead you. Faith was. You can't manifest abundance from a mindset of limitation. You can't receive overflow while thinking small. Every time you doubt your purpose, you disconnect from your provision. The universe doesn't respond to weakness, it responds to awareness. The moment you remember who you are, creation remembers who it's supposed to serve. You were not placed on this earth to beg for survival. You were positioned to demonstrate abundance. That's why lack feels unnatural to your soul, because deep within you, your spirit knows that you were created in the image of a limitless God. And when a limitless being believes, acts, and speaks from that truth, everything around them begins to multiply. You attract what you acknowledge. You manifest what you believe. Prosperity is not about possessions. It's about position. When your spirit is seated in faith, everything you need begins to flow toward you. The blessing was never outside of you. It was always within you, waiting to be activated. And when you finally stop chasing things and start chasing truth, abundance stops hiding and stops following. So today, make a decision. Decide to return to your original design. Decide to believe that you are worthy of overflow. Decide to align your thoughts with heaven's abundance. Because the moment you shift your perspective, your reality will follow. Prosperity is not coming. It's already here, waiting for your awareness to call it by name. Now listen closely, this is not the end. It's the awakening. Because the moment your spirit rises in truth, heaven begins to respond with evidence. So lift your head, speak life into your atmosphere. Walk as if every step is prophetic. Expect favor to meet you where you stand. Because abundance is not a miracle, it's your nature. And when you finally believe that, everything changes. Forever.